Hi everyone, Dr. Whitney Kosters, Professor of English, here to offer you a critical analysis on one of the most popular books of all time, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or The Philosopher's Stone if you are a British reader. Why are the titles different, you ask? Because Scholastic purchased the US rights to Harry Potter, and they felt the word philosopher needed to be changed to sorcerer to make it more child-friendly, since this is in fact a children's book. Published in 1997, this book is the first in a series of 7, the last book published a decade later in 2007. They are the best-selling book series of all time, having sold more than 500 million copies worldwide. And as you know, each book has been adapted into a film, all of which gross hundreds of millions of dollars, one even surpassing $1 billion. That is really incredible. And amongst its popularity, it has caused a maelstrom of controversy amongst Christian audiences who object to its alleged promotion of witchcraft and the occult, and it has, in my opinion, made literary critics squirm uncomfortably that these popular novels for the masses could ever become literary classics, which they seem to be becoming. No matter what you think of Harry Potter and its series, you cannot deny that they have had a massive impact on popular culture, and most importantly, the increase in readership and literacy amongst the juvenile population. It's extraordinary how well these books did in a day and age when people, especially children, sigh at the idea of having to read more than 50 pages. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is actually one of the shorter books at 315 pages, and it sold more than 120 million copies. And this book is particularly important since it sets up everything that we now know about Harry, his friends, and Hogwarts. In fact, understanding and appreciating Harry's origins and character is so crucial that Rowling spends almost half of the novel introducing his ordinary Muggle life. It's not until chapter 7 that Harry finally steps foot into Hogwarts and all its magic, the world we really want to know more about. And this lecture will focus a good amount of time on the way in which Rowling sets up the narrative and introduces Harry and Hogwarts to us, because I argue that her authorial choices are the very reason the Harry Potter series became a worldwide phenomenon. Before we get started, please subscribe to my channel if you're interested in listening to audiobooks, help with scholarly writing, and the analyses of classic literature, because it really never hurts to write better, read more, and know more about the books that continue to be talked about. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone begins in a shroud of mystery. People in strange cloaks are out and about, whispering about something exciting. A strange black cat is spotted possibly reading maps and signs. Owls are out during the daytime, swooping overhead, and there have been a downpour of shooting stars across the country. And Rowling starts the narrative through the perspective of the Dursleys, Mr. Dursley in particular, who is just as bemused by all the goings-on as we are. The only difference between Mr. Dursley and the reader is that Mr. Dursley seems to be in denial of the ongoings of the day, suggesting that he has an inkling of the matter at hand but refuses to acknowledge it. And things just get more mysterious when we meet Albus Dumbledore, who shrouds the neighborhood in darkness to hide something, and Minerva McGonagall, his colleague, who had been posing as the Black Cat all day long. These characters' conversation merely confirms that something strange indeed is going on, and it's meant to spark the reader's curiosity and wonder. All we can really gather initially is that something important, something worth celebrating, has occurred. There is a figure named Voldemort who clearly strikes fear in everyone but Dumbledore, being referred to primarily as you-know-who. He has killed 2 people, but could not kill their son Harry, which is extraordinary since Voldemort is apparently extremely powerful. No one knows how Harry survived, not even Dumbledore. To make things even stranger, a huge man named Hagrid arrives on a motorcycle from the sky. He is carrying Harry, a mere baby. The only mark of the incident with Voldemort is a lightning bolt-shaped scar on his forehead. He is left on the doorstep of his aunt and uncles with a note explaining the situation. And once Hagrid, Dumbledore, and McGonagall leave, everything returns back to normal. All we really know about Harry Potter at this point is that he is the boy who lived, a survivor, a trait that will make him famous beyond measure. But for the next 11 years, Harry's life is unremarkable, marked primarily by his family's abuse, resentment, and hatred of him. More than anything, Harry Potter is a nobody. This novel follows the conventional narrative of a fairy tale. A poor, ordinary orphan dependent on cruel and neglectful family members and who dreams of some unknown relation coming to take him away is actually suddenly whisked away by one of two sort of fairy godfathers, Hagrid, the first person who treats Harry like he matters. And with this sudden disruption in his life, Harry's circumstances are wildly transformed. He learns he is a renowned wizard who owns mounds of gold and columns of silver. His infamous scar gives him trouble and worry in the wake of an evil presence at Hogwarts, and his real fairy tale godfather, Dumbledore, cares for him from a distance, handing him over to his aunt and uncle until he is ready to be taken into Hogwarts, secretly gifting Harry his father's invisibility cloak and saving him from Voldemort at the very last minute. While it's questionable why Dumbledore leaves Harry with his awful aunt, uncle, and cousin, even Professor McGonagall protests, I think it's crucial for the narrative of this story that he be left with people who make every effort to keep knowledge and information from Harry, because suppressed information keeps the reader on their toes as well. So Rowling sets up a novel that piques our curiosity in multiple ways, making us want to know more. Who is this you-know-who Voldemort? How is it that Hagrid can fly on a motorcycle and Dumbledore can turn off all the lights in the neighborhood and McGonagall can transform into a black cat? Why did Harry, a small baby, survive the powers of the most evil wizard in the world? Why is everyone so afraid of Voldemort? What exactly needs to be explained to Harry when he gets older, and why can't Dumbledore, Hagrid, or McGonagall just explain it to him themselves? In other words, even though the narrator acts in the omniscient third person, meaning he knows the answers that we are seeking, he refuses to divulge everything at once. We are to navigate our way through Harry's life as he does. And this is what is so intriguing about Harry as a character. Prior to arriving at Hogwarts, Harry expresses to Hagrid his nervousness and intimidation at the idea of living up to his great reputation. But Hagrid just tells him, "Don't you worry, Harry, just be yourself." The problem with that is Harry doesn't know who he is. He has been stifled by the Dursleys, prevented from asking any and all questions, lied to about his history, and never has even had a friend to develop a relationship with since everyone at school is afraid of Dursley, and they all know Dursley hates Harry and anyone who associates with him. Think about the lengths Uncle Vernon goes to in order to keep Harry's identity and history a secret. Not only did Harry's aunt and uncle not explain everything to Harry as Dumbledore had expected, but when the letters that formally invite him to attend Hogwarts start to arrive at Privet Drive, Uncle Vernon snatches the letters from Harry's hands, sleeps in front of the mailbox slot in the door to keep Harry from receiving additional letters, eventually nailing it shut, and even drives to a remote spot on the sea to keep a mail truck from delivering any more. Motivated by their fear of witches and wizardry, the Dursleys will do anything to stamp out Harry's penchant for it, which of course means stamping out Harry altogether. And it's interesting how much some readers in the name of religion and out of fear of the alleged witchcraft have tried to do the same thing with the series, crying for it to be banned from schools and condemning it from the pulpit. Harry, both within and outside of the novel, will be forced at times to exist as but a shadow, an other, a suspicious being who should be more feared than accepted, more as an obtrusion and annoyance to the Dursleys' normal life. Really, the only real identity that Harry knows before his 11th birthday is that of a victim, an outcast, and an abused human. In fact, everyone else knows more about Harry and its history than Harry and we do. So this novel is a development of the character Harry Potter, literally, and we are invited to join him in this quest to know himself. Once outside the confines of a small spider-infested closet, a prison really, and away from people who actively abuse him, Harry ventures out into a new world. And I don't just mean the world of magic and Hogwarts. I also mean the world that is England, filled with people who treat him kindly, are interested in him, and give him the space to be and live without the fear of punishment and minimization. It is here that his interactions and the people he encounters will inform him of his history. The thing you probably notice is that being a wizard does not give Harry answers as to who he is and what he will become. No magic or supernatural power can do that. Certainly, he has learned a bit more about his history, that his parents were a good wizard and witch, and that they were killed by a dark wizard named Voldemort, and that he, of all people, survived this attack and minimized Voldemort's powers, but no one really knows why. In fact, in the act of finding out more about his past, Harry is simply plunged into greater mystery and far more questions than he had as a presumed Muggle. This is clearly a narrative tactic employed by Rowling throughout the series. It's in this new world of Hogwarts that Harry will figure out who he is by venturing into this new dimension, or what is known as the monomyth, or the hero's journey, in which an ordinary character is thrust into an extraordinary world filled with supernatural wonder and is forced to endure trials, tribulations, and adventures in order to return victorious and visibly matured. Like Coraline, who walks through the portal connecting her world to the other world, the Pevensie children who enter the world of Narnia through a wardrobe, and Alice who falls down the rabbit hole, Harry winds up the courage to push his way through platform 9 3/4, the invisible portal that leads him from the ordinary world of London to the magical world of Hogwarts. Stepping through can have lifelong consequences as well as rewards. When characters cross through their respective portal, they will never be the same again, nor will their ordinary world, at least to them. And it's here that average Harry Potter, nephew of the Dursleys, will begin to transform into the great wizard Harry Potter and fulfill his destiny. Once he passes that brick wall, Harry will begin his rites of passage, grow as an individual, and discover his identity. This is a coming-of-age story, a Bildungsroman, but the thing we cannot overlook is the fact that even though Harry is going into this world full of magic, he can't use any of this newfound power to determine who he's going to be. There are no clear answers at Hogwarts. In fact, even when Harry looks in the mirror of Erised, a symbol meant to reflect who we are, he sees nothing but his greatest desire, himself next to his parents. Dumbledore warns him, "This mirror will give us neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or possible. It does not do well to dwell on dreams and forget to live." So it's clear that Harry Potter will become Harry Potter only by making definitive choices. Remember, Dumbledore tells him, "It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities." And Rowling makes it clear that Harry operates between dueling forces. He has every opportunity to turn to the dark side. Remember that although he managed to withstand Voldemort's powers as a baby, he was left with a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead, which protects him from evil, but also gives him severe pain and headaches. The thunderbolt, a symbol of the spark of light and enlightenment, was hurled by Zeus down to earth as a dramatic symbol of his dual capacity for creation and destruction. As one critic argues, Harry's wound was the first evidence of a shamanic calling as well as the battleground between enormous conflicting forces within his young body and psyche. And also don't forget that when Harry goes to buy his wand, Mr. Ollivander, the wand seller, says that the wand really chooses the person. And the wand that chooses Harry is made from one of a pair of feathers from a phoenix tail. The other tail feather from the same bird is said to have gone into Voldemort's wand, the very wand that killed his parents and gave Harry his scar. This wand symbolizes the two worlds that Harry stands between, the good and the evil, as the phoenix is the mythological bird known for periodic destruction and recreation and rebirth. Even the Sorting Hat, which chooses which house each student will belong to, sees this duality in Harry. It says it's a difficult choice since he sees Harry as plenty of courage, talent, a good mind, but also a nice thirst to prove himself. And it seems that Slytherin, the house known for producing dark wizards, might be a good place for him. But it is only because Harry actively makes the choice not to be in Slytherin by thinking to himself, "Not Slytherin, not Slytherin," that the hat places him in Gryffindor, a decision that will massively impact his personal identity. And it is no mistake that Harry is the youngest seeker in the game of Quidditch in about a century. Harry's quest is to seek out his history, his identity, who he will become, and how he will do so. We are told that he can see things others can't see quite so easily. And you've got to give it to him because Hogwarts is a particularly challenging place for self-discovery and for making the best choices. It is full of trickery, magic, mischievous poltergeists, and false misleading appearances. Snape is presumed an evil wizard out to harm Harry, while Quirrell seems meek and nervous. Staircases change direction all the time, solid walls pretend to be doors, a magic mirror shows you anything but the truth, people in portraits come and go. And while at Hogwarts, Harry has strange dreams that tell him he must be in Slytherin because it's his destiny. Things deliberately seem to be what they're not. And there are really, really serious consequences for making poor choices at Hogwarts. It's astonishing how dangerous Hogwarts is for these 11-year-olds, don't you think? During their orientation, Dumbledore seriously tells them that the third floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. Break the rules at Hogwarts, and your detention could be having to venture into the Forbidden Forest at night, searching for an unknown vampiric monster that is so evil it's killing unicorns. Trespass into a forbidden room at Hogwarts, and risk being crushed by live chess pieces or mountain trolls or eaten by a ferocious three-headed dog. Show your loyalty to the wrong side, and you risk becoming possessed by the evilest wizard ever known, his face housed in the back of your head. Break the rules too many times, and you risk being expelled. And for Harry, that means ending his quest and returning to an existence where he's abused, minimized, and neglected. The risk is thus very great, and in the midst of all this trickery and fakery, Harry Potter, only having arrived at Hogwarts recently, still manages to make choices that, while sometimes breaking the rules, emphasize his attributes of loyalty, kindness, and courage. What matters then is not that Harry has magical powers, but what he will do with them. Ironically enough, I'd argue that this wizard, Harry, who has disempowered a powerfully evil wizard and who sits on piles of gold and world renown, is actually one of the most identifiable characters to the average juvenile reader. And that is what makes Harry Potter, both the character and the series, so popular and compelling. This novel is a fantasy, which is an important genre for kids. One of the things that most children feel and experience is the frustration with their rather powerless situation. Always at the mercy of adults and their rules, children seek out power, autonomy, and control over their lives. And Harry, Hermione, and Ron are trustworthy characters who the reader can vicariously live through precisely because they really are just ordinary kids in extraordinary situations. They are like us, especially Harry, with some exceptions, of course. Harry has lived a far worse life than most of us, but its ordinariness is something I think most of us can relate to. As school kids, they still have to fulfill some of the basic tasks that we do. But instead of buying common school supplies like pencils and pens, we get to browse wands with Harry. Instead of attending chemistry, we get to join him for his potions class. Instead of withdrawing money through paper and pen at Wells Fargo, we get to go on a torrid ride through a maze of twisting passages down in the vaults of Gringotts, much like I suspect the nauseating Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios. And instead of attending a basketball game, we get to fly around on a broomstick with Harry in the rather dangerous game called Quidditch. And unfortunately, the magical circumstances of Hogwarts do not preclude the difficult circumstances that we deal with in the real world. Bullying, ridicule, unreasonable competitions, insecurities, and the universal desire simply to fit in and be accepted. And Harry and his friends choose to do the right thing more often than not without magic. They stick up for Neville and for each other primarily through their courage and moral convictions, as we would. Remember that despite Harry's history and renown, it is unearned, and his later successes are built on the help of others. By the end of the novel, we learn that it was not necessarily Harry who had the power to thwart Voldemort. It was the love that his mother showed him that foiled him. Harry is destined now for greatness, but it's not because of anything naturally extraordinary about himself. It is, as I mentioned earlier, because of the choices he will make to ensure he plays for the good side. This is why it's so crucial that we learn about Harry and Hogwarts alongside Harry himself. He is just as captivated and surprised by the magical world of Hogwarts. His surprise is our surprise. His enthrallment is our enthrallment. Everything that makes him extraordinary or unidentifiable to an average reader is new, surprising, and sometimes uncomfortable and intimidating to him. We learn as he learns, giving us a sense that this is in some way our journey too. And like Harry, Ron and Hermione are marginalized and therefore more identifiable for their own reasons. Ron because his family suffers financial hardship, Hermione because she's an outsider in a muggle family. She has no friends, primarily we assume because of her high-strung and bossy personality, which seems to be her way of overcompensating for her outsider status. And it is through their incredible adventures that a real solid friendship is formed amongst these three. Friendship, as you know, is a massive component to this text. Through their devotion, loyalty, self-sacrifice, and support, this trio of friends help each other get through everything from a mere test to life and death situations. Each of them takes great risks and makes great sacrifices for the others, something we all ultimately seek in our own friendships. And perhaps one of the most compelling aspects of these young characters is that they frustrate the very adults who do not have their best interests in mind. And not just frustrate them, they even look out for them, chide them, and teach them sometimes. Harry, Ron, and Hermione act as authority figures to Hagrid in parts of the novel, helping him realize his mistake in acquiring the dragon and divulging how to get past Fluffy. They help him get rid of his dragon, scolding him that he's breaking the rules. Watching children just like themselves navigate through an entirely new realm and acquire such unique power is mesmerizing to children. Critics have called children's fantasy literature a special form of imaginative self-transcendence that helps children cope with their struggles. As one critic says, fairy tales and fantasy literature fit children for survival. It is something that helps them with narcissistic disappointments, Oedipal dilemmas, and sibling rivalries. They are enabled to relinquish childhood dependencies, gaining a feeling of selfhood and of self-worth, and a sense of moral obligation. So if the orphan boy who's locked away in a closet under the stairs and his once marginalized friends suddenly find themselves in extraordinary circumstances supported by each other, then we too may find our own escape. First through these novels and these characters, and second, when we grow up. I hope this lecture helped give you a better idea critically why the Harry Potter series appeals so much to young readers who often use literature not just as entertainment, but as an outlet for their own disappointments and frustrations. If you'd like another example of this, check out my lecture on Maurice Sendak's Where the Wild Things Are, which is linked below. And also, feel free to share with me your experiences with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or any of the novels for that matter. Tell me how these books have changed you, impacted you, what it was like growing up with them. Thanks for watching as always, and I hope to see you guys in another lecture soon.